Hello and welcome to Instant Discussions.
Dun dun!
With you here, as always, every week we have Dan Mayer,
What's up?
Darren Estrin,
Hey.
and with us for our very first time on a Magic Ape show, Steffan Munsinger. Welcome to the show. Very first time, brother. Very first time.
Thank you, Mike.
Glad to
I'm
have you
really
here.
happy to be here.
It's been a while. It's been a long time coming, and
I know. We've been just trying to plan this and organize it for God, how long?
Years.
Yeah,
It's been
literally
years.
years.
Yeah.
It's been crazy. So I'm
I'm
so fucking stoked that you're here.
yeah.
I'm so excited. You should
so
feel these nipples. That's how excited I am right now.
I'm okay.
So yeah.
Oh God.
He's right.
Why did I come on this show?
So on this week of Instant Discussions, we have for you the movie called Frank.
Yeah.
Quite frankly,
Yep.
the movie called
Oh,
Frank.
God damn it.
This is how it's gonna be.
Starring
Oh, gosh.
Michael. Is it Michael Fassbender?
Michael Fassbender.
Yeah, Michael Fassbender.
Michael Fassbender. You might know him as Magneto from X-Men First Class and
Future Past.
or
Future Past and First Class.
Days of Future Past, and Maggie Gyllenhaal, who was
Batman's dead slam hole.
second dead slam hole.
That's right. That's right.
he
Because the
was-
first one married Tom Cruise and then got like trapped in a closet or some shit. Right?
Yeah, she got a little bit insane.
You
So,
might also know her
he
from
got insane.
Donnie Darko, right?
Yeah, she was
Yeah.
also in Donnie Darko.
yeah,
She was also in what was that movie about bondage? The Secretary.
I did
Yeah.
not see that one.
Yeah.
Huh.
Never even heard of that one.
Oh, and Michael Fassbender, the one I wanted to mention, Inglourious Bastards,
Oh, that's right. He was in Inglourious Basterds.
and Prometheus.
It's been a while
He
since.
was in Prometheus. He played the robot.
Yeah, he did. That's right. So Frank, it's a movie about a young ginger. Was he Irish?
I think
British?
He was
Just British.
A young British ginger fellow who is a musician.
Yeah.
An aspiring musician. Not very good at it.
No.
Awful.
Kind of has an obsession with social media, and he just happens upon this other band, that kind of weird band where they're what was it? Was the guy was trying to kill himself in the ocean?
Yeah, the keyboardist when he found him was
Yeah, I think
attempting to off himself in the ocean.
was he like going to the beach to like find inspiration?
The guy.
The redhead. The
Yes.
The ginger. Yeah, he was just kind of moseying around his town, trying to write music, which was fucking awful.
Yeah, he's definitely like they show that he's got some musical talent, some.
Yeah.
But he's just he cannot. Inspiration is not a thing for him. So while he's out at the beach trying to find inspiration, he sees a guy and a couple cops, and this guy is trying to kill himself, trying to drown himself in the ocean, while what seems like his friends or people that know him are standing around.
I fucking love that reveal later about all the keyboardists in the group and how they've all killed themselves.
Yeah, it's kind of like with Spinal Tap, how their drummer keeps dying.
Yeah.
And anyways, so obviously
that was a great moment.
This band. It turns out that these people standing around were his band, and they've got a show coming up that night, and they don't have anyone to play keyboard for them, and well, their keyboardist is getting arrested and trying to kill himself.
He was going to the hospital because he had swallowed a fuck ton of seawater.
That's right. He went to the hospital because he swallowed a fuck ton of
Yeah, they had
seawater.
to pump his stomach.
So it just happened.
And then they had that show, and that show was just awful.
It just so happens that our protagonist was speaking with the manager of the band, mentioned that he could play keyboard.
I'm going to go with lead psychopath.
Yeah, kind of the lead psycho. It's in a band full of psychopaths. So he goes to the van. He talks to the lead singer, who you don't really see. He says, "Show up at this time," and he shows up. He's all excited, and he gets there, and it is just the weirdest band situation you've ever seen in your life. The lead singer, named Frank, wears a gigantic, like paper mache bobblehead kind of mask at all times. Comes in wearing that, only that, and a wetsuit. Plugs his XLR cable in. And how would you guys describe this music? Aside from hipster,
It was art.
it was expressionistic art.
Yeah.
Is that probably the best way to do it?
Expressionistic to a douchey level.
I think it almost had like an industrial sound to it.
A little bit.
Unorganized noise.
I mean, they had
That too.
They have Frank, the lead singer. They had a keyboardist.
There's-
They had a drummer. They had a guitar, and probably like
There's a name for that kind of music. It's like free noise or
Was
something.
it
like
ska?
No, fuck you. No, it's like it's just like it's kind of like stream of consciousness writing, but it's just like free noise music or something like that.
Yeah.
Adventure
It's
Time
essentially
regularly makes references. to
essentially
that
like
kind
the
of music.
free writing of music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and Maggie Gyllenhaal is playing a theremin, which is
Awesome.
the like craziest instrument in the world.
Fucking
Makes
theremins
sense
are
because she's the
great.
craziest woman in the movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So they play the event, and what was it? Everything kind of catches. Everything shorts out. Is that right?
Her instrument like lights on fire or something like that.
Yeah.
And then or blows a fuse, and the bassist or guitarist, I can't remember what he did, stops, and then Maggie like loses her fucking mind, and then they all storm off stage and they pile in the van and they leave.
Yeah. And
very confusing.
And they kind of leave, and our protagonist goes back to doing what he's kind of doing, and he gets a call from the manager that he spoke to earlier, and it turns out that the band. What is the band's name, by the way? It was a
They
weird.
never
I
tell you how
don't
to
remember. It
pronounce
was like Sophrogophagus or something
It's
like
like
that.
SXSY. Wait, no. What is
No,
it?
it was-
Sphoffirm or
No, he actually asked at one point in the movie how to pronounce the band's name, and none of them know how to pronounce the band's name.
Yeah.
Nobody knows how to say the fucking band's name. It's that douchey. They can't even say their own name.
So they get a call from Dawn, who is the manager of the band, and it turns out the band is going out to Ireland to go record a new album, and they want this guy to come with them and be their keyboardist. So they go out to a little cabin out in the middle of the sticks in Ireland and spend essentially the next year recording. A lot of things happen. I mean, they went probably 11 months before they ever recorded any music.
Yeah, they ran out of money.
And it's just kind of this crazy. All these people are kind of psychopaths.
Yeah.
So I want to say about the beginning, it was up to like a certain point where I felt like, oh, here's the thing that's supposed to hook me into the story. It was before all of like the beach and all of that. There was like, or maybe it was up until the beach, I think, but there was that whole expositional like thing where it gets on all that trouble and everything happens, and then the movie just like takes a slows down really hard, and then I was just like, oh, that was supposed to be the hook, and I'm really not that interested.
Yeah, that seems to be like a running theme with this one.
No, this whole movie seemed to just kind of meander along. Yeah, it kind of followed a band, if you could even call them a band. It was basically 5 social rejects.
Oh, that's what it was.
Noise.
I think it was like after you met Frank and after all that Frank stuff
Yeah.
happened, and then it's like, okay, that was the hook
I
because
think Frank is the hook.
Frank was supposed to be the hook. Yeah, but I don't care.
Yeah.
So I mean, to kind of run down the band members, obviously you've got our main character. I'm drawing a blank on his
Ginger.
name.
Ginger.
We'll call him Ginger.
I think it was John or something like that.
Yeah, it might have. Yeah, I think
His name's Ginger.
His name is Ginger.
Anyway, so Ginger, while they're out recording, Ginger is recording video. He's tweeting. He's basically doing the whole social networking thing, talking about this new thing, this new album that they're creating, and just everything else that is surrounded this, weirdly named band. You've got Frank, who, seems like he seems like kind of a good guy, very much an artist type.
He loves everything.
Yeah, it loves everything. Can find art in everything. Maggie Gyllenhaal is literally a psychopath.
She's the description has her as unstable.
Mm-hmm.
But there's multiple times where she's just violent and mean and crazy.
Yeah, and the kind of the weird thing they kind of mentioned in this movie too is they mentioned earlier that Frank and Dawn, the manager, and a couple other people in the band had spent time in a mental institution. They're all very
Didn't they
mentally
all meet
unstable.
in a mental institution?
I
know
they
Don
might
met
have,
Frank in one.
I don't think so. I don't know.
but
I don't know where the French people came from.
but at one point Ginger ends up asking Maggie, and I'm only saying that because it's the actress name because I can't remember what her name was. in
Clara.
the-
It's like
Clara.
a
It's
Clara,
Clara.
yeah.
Yeah.
Clara.
So Ginger ends up asking Clara, so what did you go to the mental institution for? And it turns out, I guess she was never even in a mental institution, at least so far as she says.
Out of any of them, she should have been.
And she is easily the craziest of all of them. So just to kind of fast forward, they end up, they're recording the album. Their manager ends up killing himself. He hangs himself while wearing one of Frank's other heads. So everybody thinks that Frank is dead initially. They cut him down. They carry him off. And turns out it was Dawn because,
Frank shows up with a box of groceries, and he's got the same face. Always, obviously, it's a mask. So he's just standing there, and you could just feel this, like, what the fuck's going on kind of face on his imaginary face.
Did none of you react like I did to Frank the hanging thing?
I don't know, how did you
I
react?
laughed. There was a lot of points in this
No,
movie where
like-
I shouldn't have laughed where I laughed.
I thought it was sad.
That was like the one part of the film where I was just like, oh wait, holy shit, and then I was like shocked for a little bit, and then like it made slight sense because I was like, oh actually, this is actually, I think it shocked me because for me it was actually a potential moment for Frank to kill himself.
Yeah.
Well,
because they had just completed that amazing song.
Well, but and you don't realize it when it actually happens. To me, it was one of those things that clicked right after I knew that it was Don that had killed himself. That when there were the signs of the fact that Don is just kind of, he's not there.
Yeah.
And he's kind of, and that album was basically his last thing he did. And I mean, if you remember very shortly before that, they finished the album and they're doing a slow push in and they've got everyone kind of standing around. They're passing beers, they're drinking. And Don's just sitting there very slowly,
like
center
half
of
his
screen,
beer.
just chugs the entire beer.
No, I remember.
And it's kind of, so it's
yeah, he
kind
chugs
of
like a third of it, right?
That did strike me as kind of like, that's really bizarre that he's drinking depressingly during a celebration.
yeah. So they give Don a Viking funeral, which I thought was probably one of the coolest
That
parts
was
of the
awesome.
movie.
Yeah, that was
Load
pretty
him on a
badass.
boat, put him out in the river, and set it on fire. They finish the album.
Then loses
The Ginger ends up getting a call from someone at gets a tweet, from someone at South by Southwest, and ends up convincing Frank and the band to go out to Texas.
Because they have 21,000 views on YouTube.
Yeah, they have 21,000 views on YouTube, which I knew this when I heard it, and I'm sure everyone else here knew this when they heard it.
It's nothing.
Is absolutely nothing, and that was what the band didn't understand, was that it was
I thought
absolutely nothing.
21,000 people were actively viewing their video at that time.
But
Yeah.
I like that it was actually completely justified too, because they're all like people that stay into the woods for months and
Yeah.
months and months. So
Yeah.
well,
Although no, it didn't make sense to me as someone who is a social media user that the Ginger was,
right.
that he thought that was a lot of people. He should
He
have
didn't. No, he never said it.
No, he did. He said 21,000 views or whatever.
But he personally thinks it's a big number. He knows that it's not the number that will get you good cred.
Yeah.
He knows that. I think he knew that the whole time. I think he was just, oh my god, like this many people actually liked my music or liked what we've been doing. You know what I mean? Or been watching it at
He was
least.
so blinded by the hope that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it was just making him happy that at least that many people watched it.
They get out to Texas. They start getting ready for South by Southwest, and they kind of realize that there aren't really, Frank is doing this because he thinks that, hey, here's all these people that know us and love us and want to see this. Turns out that's not the case, because 21,000 doesn't mean shit on YouTube.
And most of the people just thought it was hysterical what was going on, less than they cared more about the comedy of what the videos were about than realizing these are real people and this is not like an acted event.
Yeah. So Frank kind of starts to lose his mind, and he's he thought he was coming out there to fans who loved him. And as Frank starts to lose his mind, the rest of the band starts to kind of fall apart.
Well, before they went out there, when they agreed, what was her name? Clara?
Yeah.
She told Ginger that if you fuck up Texas, I will stab you.
Yes. Yeah, that
And
was
she
a very
brandished her
important
knife
part.
several times.
And so Frank kind of goes insane. Frank leaves. He disappears. They go looking. Ginger goes looking for Frank. He finds that Clara had found Frank first. Clara's kind of trying to talk some sense into him, and Frank ends up getting up and going with Ginger, and Clara,
Stabs
true
him
to
in
her
the leg
word, pulls a knife out, stabs him in the leg.
and goes to jail.
She gets arrested. She goes to jail. The rest of the band says that they're not playing without Clara in the band. Ginger says, oh, we don't need her in the band. She stabbed me. This is better for the band. So they end up taking off, and it turns into this performance at South by Southwest, real rock star performance or rock star kind of setting where Frank and Ginger end up going out together. Ginger tries to do a song of his that isn't even one of the band's. It was a stupid, horrible song that he had made.
It consisted of one word.
Yeah, one word. La, 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 la. And Frank hits the ground.
Did you catch what he said when they was like, "Are you all right, Frank?" Did you catch what he said?
I forgot what he said.
Because that was awful music.
Yeah.
He went down because of how bad the music was.
Yeah, so Frank ends up leaving. Him and Ginger disappear. At some point, Frank ends up wandering outside.
No, they're kind of making their survival in Texas as they can because they're obviously out of money, and they bailed on South by Southwest, so they get no funding to go home. So they're in a hotel, and Frank now smells really bad because he doesn't have a spare head to bathe, or he doesn't have his bag to bathe. So Ginger's yelling at him for basically being smelly and doing nothing. And he tries to take the head off of Frank, so Frank flees from this hotel room, or this motel room. He gets hit by a car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then disappears.
Shatters his head, by the way.
Yeah.
And then runs off.
His paper mache head, yeah. You just see chunks of that.
Yeah.
And then when Ginger goes to chase him, he also gets hit by a car.
Spends some time in the hospital.
Yep.
goes to social media looking for Frank, which makes it obviously more difficult because nobody knows what Frank looks like.
Yeah,
Right.
there's actually a scene when he's in the hospital trying to file a missing persons report. He's like, well, how old is he? Between 30 and 50? What's he look like? And then he just kind of just hangs up the phone.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't know.
Gets a tip from Twitter from someone. Or
Several bogus tweets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, real quick before we did that, he actually goes looking for the band, minus Frank.
Yeah. he does find that.
Finds the band. They're not willing to talk to him. They have basically shut him off. They are done with him. They're basically
He is their albatross.
they're doing music very much unlike them in a small bar in Texas, where they're kind
They're
of like
still
the
not
house.
good.
Yeah, they're not good. They're like the house band. Anyways, so he gets a tip on Twitter from someone says that Frank is in the city in Kansas. They give him an address. He goes to the address, and turns out that Frank had made his way back to his parents' house where he grew up, and so he goes running. He talks to his meets his parents, gets to meet Frank without the mask.
Oh, what makes this scene pivotal is that the whole time the Ginger has been looking for. He feels he has trouble with being a musician because he hasn't had that abusive childhood or that time in a mental institution. He has no struggle to give him.
Unlike Frank,
give
was
him
what he
art.
thought.
And he thought Frank was like in and out of institutions and abusive childhood. So he meets Frank's parents. Frank's parents were like, the first time he put on the mask, he was 14. And the dad's like, I helped him make it. He told me it was for a costume party, and I knew there was no costume party, but I just figured it would be fun to make. He's like, and then he started wearing the mask, and that's it. That's the story of the mask. He just decided one day he didn't want people to see his face.
And he ends up asking him, about if he had an abusive childhood, if he had all these. And he said no, he had a very good childhood. He had a loving home. He, his parents took care of him and they loved him. And they said, well, what about the psychosis? Did that help him with his music? And they said no, actually, if anything, he was always musically gifted. It just slowed him down.
Yeah.
So he has a moment with Frank. He gets to kind of
You finally see Frank's real face.
for who he is. Yeah.
And I really appreciated the fact that he had the bald patches where the straps would be.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the damage to the front of his forehead. Because at first I was like, oh, he's disfigured. Then I went, wait a minute, no, that's where the straps from the head would sit.
Yeah.
So that made a lot of sense.
So they get Frank back to Frank and the Ginger. They show up at the bar where the band
Clara and the Frenchies.
where they're all playing, and they see him and they kind of break down a little bit, and they hand the mic off to Frank, and they go back to making the music the way they made music, and
Ginger leaves.
Ginger just leaves, and he walks out of their lives forever, and
As
fade
he
to
should.
credits. As he should, absolutely.
Although I wish Frank was scratching
Yeah.
The itches.
yeah, like
Well, he was
how
kinda,
itchy
hiding
that
his
would
face.
fucking be.
It was like he was really, really quiet and wouldn't look at anybody and was singing to the wall.
Yeah.
Well, in a way,
So-
literally, this is the first time they ever physically saw him.
Yeah. And actually, I don't think they really registered who he actually was until he started singing. There was that's probably Frank, but then when he started singing, everyone kind of started going with it.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's kind of the summary of the plot right there. What do you guys think it did well? What if there were anything out of it that you enjoyed? Dan, I know there was a specific scene that you particularly
early on
enjoyed.
when they're in Ireland, they're talking about the ups and downs of the different band member, and they said some days we're great with Frank, and it shows them running around and laughing and chasing each other in the field. And it was something along the lines of some days weren't so good, and then it shows Frank with a shovel chasing Ginger around trying to hit him with a shovel.
Yeah,
And that was a great scene in my mind.
yeah. Anyone else?
I really enjoyed the entire middle scene where they're recording in Ireland. I thought the entire thing was really good.
Yeah, it was kind of, as Steffan was saying, it was a little bit slow, but it was at the same time it gave you a really good look into the band members.
Yeah, I really like that.
We keep calling this a band.
They're a band.
Don't think this counts as a band.
No,
There's
I
five
think it
people who
does.
make noise with instruments.
No, because the drummer had a beat, and the guitarist is playing riffs, and he's still, even though he's kind of talk singing, Frank's still singing, I
No, I
guess.
still don't really consider this much of a band.
I think it's
It's not a good band, but it is a band.
Steffan?
I guess I would just say the later half of the film
Yeah.
when it started to get to they made the music and now they're going to South by Southwest and dealing with that and just the whole struggle there.
Yeah.
The whole struggle at South by Southwest. That's my favorite part.
Yeah, totally.
That was actually my least favorite part because I just felt so bad for Frank because he was expecting this like almost like a hero's welcome.
Yep.
And then fucking they show up, and he's like, "Wait, what? You mean we flew all the way out here and nobody knows who we are?" Like, he's like, "That's the equivalent of like maybe 3 people in the crowd will know who you are." And at that point, he's like,
goes under the table.
He's like goes under the table. He's like, "Only 3 people, only 3 people." And the rest of the movie where he's there, it's just I feel so bad for him because his world just like collapsed around him. Ginger built him up so much with this, like they're gonna love you and everyone knows who you are and everything. And he shows up and he's like, "Nobody knows who I am." Like. This is not okay with me.
Yeah.
There were my favorite thing of this movie, and it was the way it used themes, and there were 2 very important themes that I felt that this movie had a very good portrayal of. The one that I think that is kind of the easiest, the one that you see in movies that are kind of like this, was the basically the use of like people wanting to be famous. You have very kind of. Even though Frank kind of turns into the latter, you end up having in the beginning, you have Frank, who he's all about the music. He doesn't care about fame. He wants to make music. That is his life. That is his passion. Then you have Ginger, who, yes, he likes music. He enjoys music, but he is doing it for the sake of being famous.
Music was an ends to his means.
Exactly, and that's what he wanted. That's what he wanted. So when he started talking about being famous to Frank, and Frank started getting very excited about it, and saying, and just kind of like, oh yeah, our fans, and I want to be famous, all this other kind of stuff. You kind of got the sense that wasn't Frank. Like that was not the kind of person that Frank initially was. So that was the one where they kind of hit you over the head with a little bit. The other one that to me I really enjoyed, because I feel like this is especially a big problem nowadays, was just the overwhelming like false positives that come from social media. And the fact that this entire time that they're out there recording this, was supposed to be this artistic, it's all about the music kind of thing. And you've got Ginger here who's shooting videos all the time. He's massively tweeting. The fact that he's using, we've got 23,000 views, which literally is fucking nothing. Like 23,000 is nothing views. And it's just this whole kind of evils of social media at the same time. Even when he's looking for Frank, they kind of show, has anyone seen Frank? And rather than just showing the one response he gets that shows him where Frank is, they're showing him all the bullshit of like, hey, I'm a new Russian mail order bride from blah, 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 blah. Here's our website. Or, stop fucking blowing the shut up. You suck. Fuck you.
Yeah.
And, it was like getting all the normal. Quit milking it. So easily, I think the theming was probably my favorite part from this. So is there anything that you guys didn't care so much about this?
Most of the movie.
Was it too slow?
It was really slow, and it's one of those, like, I'm all for art. If you want to express yourself, fucking express yourself. But art for art's sake is not for me. And this whole movie was basically about a whole bunch of people doing art for art's sake.
Mm-hmm.
And it was douchey. Like, every one of the band members was douchey. Even Frank was douchey. He was a really nice guy, but the whole, like, face mask and wouldn't speak and, like, running off stage when the minorest thing goes wrong, that was douchey to me.
Yeah.
That's the only way I could describe it. And the whole movie was just about 6 douchebags being douchebags.
Yeah. Anyone?
I would say my least favorite part is there's that scene where they're driving to South by Southwest, and they stop off to drop off Dawn's ashes. And instead of the ashes, it ends up being some kind of like.
It was the powder drink that.
Yeah, it's like
Frank
something you would.
subsists
It's like
off
something you would add to like a smoothie or something like that.
of.
Some
Like
kind of powder.
Vitamix, I think.
Exactly.
No, Vegemix?
Something like that. Pretty much everything after that part, I just really didn't care for. I kind of lost interest in.
I actually like that scene in particular because
Which scene? The
one where he's with spreading the ashes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Throwing
enjoyed
all
that
over the
scene. I said I
bandmates?
enjoyed that
Yeah.
scene.
I
Everything
was
after
agreeing.
that.
I was agreeing with you. I
Yeah.
really enjoyed that scene.
That scene was great.
Other than the fact that was hilarious, but immediately I had thoughts of The Big Lebowski, where at The Big Lebowski when they're spreading Donnie's ashes.
Spoilers.
No, if you haven't seen The Big Lebowski, this movie's way newer than The Big Lebowski. If you haven't seen The Big Lebowski, but in The Big Lebowski when they're spreading his ashes and basically the dude gets covered in his ashes.
Yeah.
It was kind of the same that same regard.
I was laughing pretty hard as the French guitarist or whatever, like, Frank says some words and he throws a handful and
And
it
it
goes
hits him.
all over the guy. And I was
Yeah.
just like, oh, that sucks they do it again. And then the fucking
Clara.
she like licks him, and she's like, "This isn't Frank, or this isn't Don, this is Vitamix." And the guitarist is like, "Oh, I grabbed the wrong box." It makes it even worse for Don because that means his ashes were just thrown away.
Yeah.
He was just dumped in a trash can, or worse, Frank may have eaten him.
Yeah. Steffan, what were your concerns or issues with this movie?
My least favorite. I mean, just it took a while to get where it was trying to go, and it seemed like a lot of movie for what it was trying to do.
Yeah.
It felt a lot longer than an hour and a half.
Yeah, it did.
Which is basically like a huge concern, right? Like it was just too much movie for what it wanted, and it didn't have enough conflicts that I cared about.
I feel like
right, like they had all these conflicts, like during the whole like staying for 11 years or whatever the
11
fuck,
months.
11 months in that cottage. They had all those conflicts. I didn't really give two shits because it's all band conflicts. I don't know. I guess it just seems like over dramatized, and I don't know. The comedy didn't hit me as much as it probably hit you guys. And that was also, but not as good.
I think Ireland dragged on a little bit too long for me. I think that was just like you said. It was an hour and a half. Didn't feel like an hour and a half.
It felt like I was
It
watching
felt longer.
fucking Lord of the Rings. Like a whole bunch of people walking around to get somewhere that they just never get to.
I will say though, going back, actually, I realized another thing that I really did like about the film was, or at least was that Frank. I mean, I'm going to say though Frank was wearing the Frank head, but more in particular was that like they had all these moments, right, where of like high emotional intensity where Frank was supposed to react, and the beautiful thing about it was now you get to imagine the worst possible reaction on his face without saying it, right?
I did enjoy that little while where he was saying his facial expressions.
Yeah,
Like, what was it?
that was funny. Yeah, Glee.
Smiley face.
Accepting warm smile.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was fun.
It was definitely. I'm going to describe this movie as incredibly indie. And I've watched a few
Yeah,
indie films
it
that
was.
were decent. This was like super indie film. Like, hey, let's make an indie film about being an indie film.
Yeah.
Well, that being said, we talked about the good, we've talked about the bad. Let's get to ratings. So on your scale of 1 to 5, what do you guys give this rating, starting with Dan?
I wish I can go with half stars, but I can't. So I'm going to go with.
Well, what would you give it?
If I could do half stars, I'd go with 2.5, maybe more towards the 3 side. Like, if it was.
But do you always round down? So
I generally round up.
okay.
But I'll go with 2 because I wouldn't jump at the chance to watch it again. But if somebody wanted to watch it, I'd be able to tolerate it.
All right. Darren?
I'm gonna give it 3 stars.
All right.
I thought it was actually pretty well done. Again, I mean, aside from I said earlier, I didn't really care for the whole ending, but at the same time, I really couldn't imagine it ending any other way. I thought the ending, the way it did end, where Ginger just ends walking away, realizes I'm a shitty musician. These guys are shitty musicians. There's no point in being here.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Steffan?
I loved that ending. Now that you're actually talking about the ending, because there was actually something after all this shit show, hour and a half of a film, that was fucking accomplished. And Ginger left accomplishing something. And that was Frank isn't wearing his mask anymore, and he's out in public.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
That was about the only
awesome.
thing he did right,
yeah.
in a way.
So he was able, and that's why him leaving at that moment was really good. Anyway, all right. I would probably say the same Dan did. If I could give half ratings, I would. And it would be the same. It would be 2.5. But I'm going to do 3 instead of 2.
All right. You round it up.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to give it a 4. It's not.
Fucking hipster.
No, it's not. Yeah. Judge me for what I liked about it.
It's because his ratings suck.
Yeah. No. It's It's not like my favorite movie of all time. I wouldn't even consider it one of my favorite movies of all time. I thought it was a good movie. It was a solidly good movie, and for what it did, I think it did it well. And I thought the characters had the right amount of flaws. There was at least with some of them there was enough to like about them. Overall, I give it a 4 stars. So I guess that would average us at 3 stars.
Yeah.
Total
Yeah.
on this. So
I mean, I guess the benefit of it is it wasn't a handycam style movie.
yeah.
Like, it was actually filmed like a fucking movie, which
Yeah.
is super rare nowadays.
That's
the
true.
cinematography was actually pretty
Yeah,
decent.
most of the shots were framed really well, and the artistic shots were framed artistically. It wasn't like the filming wasn't douchey; the subject matter was douchey.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
So yeah, that'll be it. So yeah, that was Frank here on
Wow.
Instant Discussions. To put it frankly,
God damn it!
Stefan,
I'm hurting.
what are we watching next week?
Oh, wow. All right, the guest get. I'm gonna. I guess. The
Yeah,
guest,
why not? Why not?
Sure.
Fuck it.
Let's mix it up.
Let's mix it up.
We don't know what to expect.
As the
from you.
for
All right.
someone who's never been here before, we're just gonna throw caution to the wind. And we're gonna let you
Us
shoot in the
veterans are
dark.
bored of
Oh,
choosing, so you
yeah.
know what? You choose.
Hold on.
Yes.
You guys are making me like pull up Netflix here and shit, and like I'm just gonna pick like the first
Shit, man,
fucking.
be ready. This
Hold
is a
on.
shit show.
Look, you guys just fucking told me like right now as a guest that I gotta fucking do this.
Yeah, we're putting you on the
First thing I
spotlight.
see is the good, the bad, and the weird. There, it's on my queue.
All right, the good, the
Alright.
bad, and the weird.
You
That's,
heard it here first.
Yep, that's
It's
we're
a-
watching next week on Instant
It's
Discussions.
a foreign film.
Yes.
Oh,
So,
you and your fucking foreign films.
For Dan Mayer,
From
Darren Estrin,
Kor-
Stefan Munsinger,
from Korea.
and Mike Furr.
Wait, I think
Thanks
it's
for
Korea.
watching Instant Discussions here on Magic Ape. Have a great week, and we'll see you when next week we watch the good, the bad,
and the weird.
and the weird. Thanks for watching.
Later.